Retired Bob having fun. This is a photographic documentary of a very special lake in Winter Park, Florida. That lake is Lake Berry. Now, Lake Berry has three very unique things about it. The first thing is it's connected to the Winter Park chain of lakes by a canal attaching it to Lake Virginia. But the canal is not navigable, but it's still part of the Winter Park chain of lakes. The second thing that's interesting about Lake Berry along its shores is the Westminster Winter Park Senior Retirement Community. Now it's 10 acres on the lake, and the 10-acre plot of land was developed as a ministry project of the Presbyterian Church USA back in 1954. And I'm proud to be part of that very dynamic and exciting community on Lake Berry. The third thing that's interesting about Lake Berry is the Genius Preserve, a natural preserve that will remain that way forever. I do have to reach out to the Elizabeth Morris Genius Foundation, who allowed me to actually photograph some buildings on their property, which you'll see in this documentary. I think it's time that we go ahead and start our adventure of discovery around this wonderful little Lake Berry. Directly behind Westminster Winter Park Towers is the Lake Berry Ferry, ready to take us on our adventure around the lake. Lake Berry is about 67 acres in size and has an average depth of about 10 feet. There's no natural springs in the lake. The grass that you see growing up from the bottom of the lake is called eelgrass, a native Florida plant. The little flowers are how the eelgrass propagates itself. As we leave the dock at Westminster Winter Park, you will see just to the right of the kayaks the boundary between Westminster Winter Park and the Waterbridge subdivision. As we move along the shoreline up ahead, you will see three beautiful cabbage palms. The cabbage palm is also known as the sable palmetto. It is the state tree of Florida as well as South Carolina. The palm tree can be used for many things, one of which is palm of heart, which is used in salads. As we round the corner, a beautiful bald cypress comes into view. The bald cypress is called bald because it loses its leaves during the winter months. It is also part of the giant sequoia family of trees. The cypress knees, we are not really sure what they do, but the wood from the cypress tree is very resistant to water and insect damage. As we move along the shoreline, this is the end of Waterbridge and the start of Windsong. This beautiful house, which is the start of Windsong, has two gorgeous live oak trees on either side of it. As we travel into this corner of the lake, a beautiful live oak tree is visible, as well as the Windsong Community Dock to the right. Behind the Windsong Community Dock, in the Windsong Community, on Genius Drive now, you will find the Lake Berry Overlook, and to the right you will see the canal that connects these two lakes. It is a nice walk along the boardwalk out to the lake, and you will be standing at the dock you just saw a minute ago. Up ahead you will see a large group of native Florida water lilies. These are the American white water lily as well as the yellow flower water lily. The American white water lily has leaves that are flat against the surface of the water. The bloom happens late morning and closes in the evening. Now, Native Americans use the roots of this plant to treat sore throats, diarrhea, and toothaches. The yellow flower water lily has leaves that kind of curl up, and the flower doesn't completely open. But insect larvae symbiotically feed on portions of this plant and are eaten by brims and shiner. And brim and shiners are the main food for bass, and that's why we have such a great bass population in this lake. We're now coming to the end of the Windsong community and the start of the 48-acre Genius Preserve. This is the monument directly behind that house showing the start of the Genius Preserve. Remember, Charles Morris visited the Winter Park area in the 1880s. He was a Chicago industrialist. He fell in love with this town and bought the property between Lake Virginia, Lake Mizell, and Lake Berry and developed citrus groves here. He had 2 wives. His second wife was Helen Pritchard. But it's with his first wife, Martha Jeanette, that he had his daughter, Elizabeth Morris. Now, Elizabeth Morris married Dr. Richard Genius. They had a daughter called Jeanette Genius. But sadly, Elizabeth passed away in 1910 and never lived in the house. Dr. Richard Genius built this winter home in the preserve facing Lake Virginia. When Dr. Richard Genius and his brother, Dr. Arthur Genius, wintered in Winter Park from New York, they stayed in the house and called it Casa Genius. Jeanette Genius went to Rollins College, and that is where she met Hugh McKean. Hugh McKean also studied under Louis Tiffany and was the 10th president of Rollins College. When Jeanette and Hugh moved into Casa Genius, they renamed it Casa Windsong. Jeanette and Hugh introduced the peacock into the preserve in 1950. It later became the symbol of Winter Park in 2004. As we move along the Genius Preserve, you'll notice a dead live oak that is a favorite nesting place for birds. Today we have a beautiful anhinga drying its wings on one of the branches. You can identify the anhinga by its long, straight beak. We are now coming to the end of the Genius Preserve and the start of Windsong once again. The house you see is called the Ward House. It was actually built by Dr. Borrow, his wife Susan, and 2 sons. When he failed in health, it was sold to Harley Ward. When he passed away, it went to the Winter Park Land Company, which later sold it to the Elizabeth Morris Genius Foundation. The other building on the property is a restored citrus packing plant that was used in the 1880s to pack citrus to be sent north. Both the citrus packing plant and the Ward House were moved from the Windsong property to its current location. Now we see the dock in Windsong in the second community. The beautiful tree hanging over the dock is called a live oak. The live oak is a southern symbol of strength. You might remember that the USS Constitution was called Old Ironside because it was built from wood from this tree. The wood is so strong that cannonballs would literally bounce off the sides of the ship. Hanging from the tree is moss, and moss on the live oak is an epiphyte obtaining its nutrition from the rain, water, and air, not harming the tree. Native Americans called it tree hair and had many uses for it. Later, the French explorers called it Spanish beard, and the Spanish explorers called it French hair. As we move along Genius Drive, we see a favorite hangout for turtles. The 2 most common turtles like Berry are the Peninsula Cooter and the redneck slider. The redneck slider is one of the most invasive species in the world. We're now coming to the end of Windsong and the start of Balmoral Drive. Balmoral Drive ends and Westminster Winter Park begins with Summerfield, and this is the Summerfield dock. This is the easement between Summerfield and the Lakemont Circle community. Lakemont Circle community continues along the shoreline to the Garden Apartments. This is the Garden Apartment dock. You can't actually see the Garden Apartments from here. Once we leave the Garden Apartments, you'll see the Lockberry community and the Lockberry dock. We're now back to Winter Park Towers, where we started our journey of discovery around Lake Berry. I hope you enjoyed our little trip around Lake Berry. Feel free to share the adventure with your friends, like or subscribe to the channel if you like, and most of all, enjoy life and have fun. Now, where is the deepest part of Lake Berry? Email me and I will send you a resident design depth map. I never share your email addresses.